Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the DFS show for tonight's now 13-game slate for Thursday, January 28th. So welcome back to everybody. I hope you guys had a good night last night. I was a Tyler Mott. I was a Tyler Mott random goal there at the end. Away from having a couple takedowns last night. Unfortunately, he got lucky and scored two, which I didn't see coming. Everybody asked if there was a fourth liner that I would have played. Tyler Mott was not on there, but it happened. Still a good night. Vancouver 1 went off like we were kind of expecting. Vancouver 2 went off like we were kind of expecting, which was great. Big bounce back for them. I'm sure they're probably going to be popular tonight because of it. But yeah, so we've got a 13-game slate now because the Vegas-St. Louis game has been postponed. COVID issues in Vegas. So 13-game slate now, still a lot to talk about on today's show. A couple comments early on here. Dan says that DraftKings really thinks they can stop me from stacking McKinnon and Randon by jacking up the prices. They thought wrong. I'm right there with you. Yep, I like them a lot again tonight. If they have a tougher matchup, sounds good. I noticed the Stars in a smash spot, they generally suck and let it in the second and third liners get all the goals. Yeah. All right, we got 13-game slates. Let's get right into it here. Really no reason not to jump right in. Lots to talk about, obviously. Remember, you guys can ask any questions you have throughout the show. I'll try to answer all of them as we go and try to touch on a little bit of everything for today's humongous slate. So we've got a bunch of games opening up at 7 o'clock, starting with the Canadiens and the Flames. Carey Price goes for the Canadiens. A bit of a slow start, although they are winning a ton of games, but their goaltending has not been all that strong. But David Rittich makes his season debut for the Flames. Elvis Merzlikins in net for the Blue Jackets as they host the Panthers, who will go with Chris Driedger. The Washington Capitals host the Islanders. Vitek Vanacek goes again for the Capitals. We are expecting to see Semyon Varlamov for the Islanders, and I don't see really any reason why he wouldn't. 966 save percentage on this season. Just outstanding stuff. The Devils will continue to roll with Scott Wedgwood because Mackenzie Blackwood is still in COVID-19 protocol. Carter Hart gets back in net for the Flyers. He has been terrible as of late. 14 goals on 91 shots and 846 save percentage in his last 3 starts. The Carolina Hurricanes are back in action. They are going to be missing a number of key players. However, we expect to see Peter Mrazek after a lengthy absence. Andrei Vasilevsky expected to go for the Lightning after, I think they've been off for 4 or 5 days. So the Buffalo Sabres are probably going to go with Linus Ullmark, although unconfirmed. That is another one of those situations. It honestly might be confirmed while I'm on the show here. So if you guys are on Twitter and see anything, let me know because that'd be really helpful. And Igor Shesterkin confirmed to start for the Rangers. Yaroslav Halak starts for the Bruins. Tuukka Rask actually not even going to dress, but he is expected to be back Saturday. But something to keep an eye on for you season-long players out there. Unconfirmed, nobody really knows who's going to start for the Penguins. Honestly, I wouldn't be shocked if it's DeSmith tonight, but either way, pretty tough matchup. They are super shorthanded. We will talk about that a little bit later. Kaapo Kähkönen continues to start for the Wild with Cam Talbot out. Jonathan Quick was the first goalie off at Kings skate this morning, so he is most likely going to start. Jake Ottinger makes his NHL debut in net for the Stars. Jonathan Bernier likely to go as the Red Wings continue to rotate their goaltenders. Darcy Kemper confirmed for the Coyotes. However, Antti Ranta is expected to return as his backup tonight, so I would assume that Kemper's workload will start to lighten a little bit here as we move forward. Nobody confirmed in Anaheim, but I would be absolutely stunned if it is not John Gibson, who's been absolutely outstanding so far this year. Already 2 shutouts in his first 6 starts, 948 save percentage. He's been lights out. He was somebody that we talked about as a really cheap option the other night, and he posted a shutout. So, here on the DFS show, we like John Gibson right now. Philip Grubauer starts for the Avalanche. This is a massive slate. And Devin Dubnyk confirmed for the Sharks. Dubnyk came in relief of Martin Jones in the blowout loss on Tuesday. He didn't look all that sharp, made a couple of big saves, but really didn't look all that great either. So probably another spot where the Avalanche are going to light them up. It's going to be most likely Mikko Koskinen versus Frederik Andersen in the last game. I just had to refresh that because Braden Holtby is now likely as well to start for the Vancouver Canucks. And we'd expect to see Matt Murray for the Senators after Marcus Högberg went last night and lost. So there we go. 5 minutes of starting goalies. Let's get into it. Mod is someone I almost always plug and play randomly. Yesterday was not one of those days. That is super unfortunate. That is just brutal. Chris Johnson said Petrangelo, Aaron Dell, Andre Athanasiou have been added to the COVID-19 protocol list. Okay, well, there you go. So some changes will be going on for the LA Kings tonight with Andre Athanasiou. The other two guys don't really matter too much for tonight's slate. Please post the matchup charts on DFO site after the show. I just see yesterday's charts. Yes, I have. Today's been crazy with the 13-game slate. I have not had a chance to post those yet, but as soon as the show's over, I will get those live to you, and you'll be able to see them right now on the show. So let's get into things here. Let's start with Montreal versus the Flames. I guess we can actually start with top stacks of the night. For those of you that don't have the ability to stick around for the entire show, really like Toronto won tonight, Colorado won, Edmonton won, all near the top of the list. The LA Kings top line actually looks like they're in a really good spot tonight, even though they are going up against this pretty stingy Wild team. But we will get into why they are a strong play this evening a little bit later when we get to that game. The Ottawa Senators top line, they only scored one goal last night, but they were all over it. I mean, Josh Norris, I think he hit the 5-shot bonus in the first period yesterday with a goal. Brady Tkachuk hit the 5-shot bonus last night as well. So they look really like they're in a really good spot again tonight. Braden Holtby is, in my opinion, the much lesser of the two goalies in Vancouver right now. So with that added, bonus for the Senators tonight, they should be able to have a pretty productive night after, relatively being held in check last night, but they did their job for the most part. Josh Norris was a key factor in my big lineup last night, and I will definitely have some Ottawa one again tonight. Toronto 2 looks like they are in a great spot as well. Right behind Toronto 1, Ilya Mikheyev on that second line, just 2,600, looks like a tremendous value play. But you never know with the Leafs. They could definitely have somebody else skating on that left wing in warmups. But I would expect to see Mikheyev there after a win the other night. But Tavares just 6,400, Nylander just 5,300. Really pretty cheap for as good as they are. All things considered, I mean, they're almost $6,000 cheaper than Toronto 1, in an almost equally impressive spot. Buffalo 1 continues to pop near the top of the chart. Vancouver 1 gets back up there after a nice night last night. Numbers, we're so early in the season that one big performance definitely helps the underlying numbers, and they were all. Oh, sorry, that's the Horvat line. Actually, my bad. Horvat line continues to look good. They didn't have a great night last night, but their underlying numbers are still terrific, and it's just as good of a spot as last night. Tampa Bay 1 had a really strong start to the year. We haven't seen them in a while. Vancouver 2, that's the one I wanted to talk about. They were up there last night, but that was only 2 games late. Nice to see them back up there. They were all over it last night. It's just so fun when you play Vancouver 1, because whenever they get a power play, it's like literally just Miller to Hughes to Pettersson and Miller to Hughes to Pettersson. They're just ripping bombs all over him. Like, it's so fun to play that. But all right, let's get into what did I say the first game was? Montreal and Calgary. So yeah, not a whole lot of these lines popping in the top. Montreal 2. Here's the first one we'll find. Drouin, Suzuki, Anderson has been one of my favorite lines earlier this season. Montreal 3 right behind them. They've got terrific numbers. Toffoli and Kotkaniemi together, even with Armia not on the line, they've been strong through the first couple of games. Calgary does not pop up very much here. So this actually isn't the first game on the sheet, so it's here. Okay, so the Philip Deneau line is expected to see the majority of their ice time against the Elias Lindholm line, which really just zaps any value that the Lindholm Tkachuk line would have had. Meanwhile, the second line for the Canadians, the Nick Suzuki line, is expected to see most of the Johnny Gaudreau Monahan line, which is the much better spot. But not by much so far. The John Gaudreau line has actually been pretty solid defensively. But they haven't been very solid defensively. I'm looking at Montreal. Sorry, it's been a long day. 31 scoring chances against for Calgary 2 so far. Not great defensive numbers. Their offensive numbers are okay, but as you can see, just Montreal's top 9 has been outstanding so far this year. They've yet to lose in regulation. I'm pretty sure they're tied for the NHL lead in goals per game right now. So Montreal's in a really good-looking spot tonight. I'm definitely going to have Montreal quite a bit, and if I'm going to play them, it's most likely going to be Montreal 2. They seem to be in the best spot of any of their three lines. Like I said, I don't really play Montreal 1 all that often. So Montreal 2 looks like they're in a terrific spot. I probably, with such a massive slate, I probably would have tried to still fade them had Markstrom started. But with Riddick starting, not that he's bad, he's just not Jakob Markstrom. I like Montreal 2 a lot tonight. I don't have any interest really in Calgary. Montreal has been so solid defensively. Calgary does not pop on the list. So I like Montreal 2 quite a bit tonight. And we'll talk a little bit more about defensemen and all that stuff later. I really got to try to rush through this bad boy because we got 13 games to cover. Columbus and Florida in the second game of the night. We mentioned Florida won the other night, and they had a terrific evening. I would expect much of the same again tonight. Florida 1 is expected to see kind of just a mix of all four lines. John Tortorella really not matching too hard, but you will see a lot of Barkov versus Alexander Texier tonight. And I think that's still a matchup that Barkov should win. This sample here doesn't even include as good as they've been. Like the sample's too small still to really look at how good Anthony Duclair has been with Barkov this season. But probably after this game, their sample will be included and they're really going to pop next game. But this is still really strong offensive numbers. Obviously, the Texier line has been solid, so it's not the best spot ever. But I still really like the Barkov line. They are pretty cheap. Let's see how expensive they are. So for Haggis, up to 3,700. Duclair also 3,700. Barkov 67. So still pretty cheap. 14,100 to full stack them. I really like that line again tonight. They had a terrific night the other night. They really seem to be the only line that's doing anything for Florida. So I like Florida 1 again tonight. I'm not going to probably play any Columbus. It's just not. It just doesn't look like there's anything going on really. Florida's been really solid defensively so far. Their underlying numbers are strong. Columbus has not been very good offensively. I really liked their that third line at the start of the season. Now it's like basically their first line. They are going to get Jack Roslovic tonight. Their third line actually looks kind of appealing. Looks like it's pretty talented with Roslovic, Jenner, Atkinson. But considering it's Roslovic's first game, considering it is a 14-game slate, I'm just not going to go there. So probably not going to have any Columbus tonight. But Florida 1 looks to be in play yet again. Fernando says back-to-back great nights. Thanks for the advice. No problem. That's what we're here for. Glad you're back. It's always a good sign. So, moving on. We've got Washington and the Islanders. So Washington is, we had Washington 1 the other night. They didn't do all that great. They busted for us tonight. They're broken up. Wilson, game time decision, is expected to be on that first line if he plays. But TJ Oshie has to go to the middle. They interviewed him today, and they're like, when was the last time you played center? And he said forever ago. So I don't really love the prospect of playing TJ Oshie tonight, centering a line with Connor Sheary and Richard Panik. Backstrom and Verona kind of lose a lot of their luster without Oshie on that line. It's just not as good with Tom Wilson instead of TJ Oshie. So not a lot of interest in the Capitals tonight. They're decimated. I don't mind it if you wanted to play maybe like a little Verona Backstrom mini stack. Justin Schultz is a terrific one-off D play. He had a great night last night. I expect he'd be fairly popular tonight because of that. But he's still super cheap. So if you are going to play anybody from the Capitals in this game, I think you could probably one-off Justin Schultz as a defenseman, and that's as far as I would go. So with that said, I think that definitely puts Semyon Varlamov in play. He's not overly expensive. Actually, I think he's only like 7,500 on DraftKings. Yeah, 7,500. So he's been outstanding this year. With the lack of quality in the Capitals lineup right now, I definitely have a lot of interest in Varlamov at that price. There's, tons of goalies that are way more expensive in way worse spots than him. So I like him quite a bit. As for the Islanders side of things, I really like that first line again. They're a line that I continue to go to with some regularity. They have been kind of letting us down so far this season, but they're expected to see 60% of their ice time against Washington's third line, which has been really good defensively so far this season. So it's not a great spot. If we look at the pace, it's not a very high-paced game tonight. I think that this is going to be relatively low scoring on a 13-game massive slate. There's so many other spots that are going to be much higher scoring games. So I'd probably avoid this one altogether. Like I said the other night, I don't like Islanders 2 without Anthony Beauvillier. So it just really looks like kind of a game that I'm going to completely fade. And Justin Schultz, again, one-off defenseman looks fine. Noah Dobson, one-off defenseman, also looks really solid as well. But other than that, I'm probably not going to target this game. Lee or Eberle as a mini stack with Barzell. Whenever I stack them, it's usually Lee. He's just more of a goal scorer than Eberle. So if I ever leave somebody off of an Islanders 1 stack, it is Eberle. But it's a scary proposition to leave either one of them off because they're both terrific. Is Florida 1 power play in play tonight? I mean, yeah, I think that there's a lot of other spots that you could go, but they're definitely in play. They are definitely not going to be very high owned. I just don't love what the Wenberg line's been doing so far. Like, obviously, I think Huberdeau is terrific, but they haven't really gotten anything going yet. So that scares me a little bit. That's the only reason I probably wouldn't, because it's like you're really just relying on Huberdeau picking something up on the power play because they're not really getting anything going at 5v5. So I think on another night probably, but tonight probably not somewhere I'm going to go. Dobson from the Islanders, yes, him and Schultz are kind of like the only two that I'm really interested in that game because it should be pretty low scoring, but they're both outstanding. Devils and Flyers. So none of these lines really pop for me. The Devils top line is starting to creep up a little bit, adding Nikita Gusev to that line instead of Igor Sharjanovic or whatever his name is. Definitely boosts their numbers quite a bit. So the Devils are in play a little bit, that top line at least. I think that Carter Hart probably bounces back. It's not a spot that I absolutely love. But let's take a look at their matchup. So they're expected to see about 40% of Philadelphia 4. So if we take a look at that, Philadelphia 4 has been pretty good so far this year. Only 20 scoring chances against per 60. So not the best matchup for Jack Hughes. They've been really going out and finding Jack Hughes about as cushy of matchups as they can. I haven't looked at it recently, but the other day his offensive zone starts was like 70, which is unheard of. They're just finding him the cushiest matchups ever. He's going out against the worst line from the other team almost every single night, and it's helped. But tonight that Connor Bunnaman led line has been actually pretty good for the last year and a half. So I'm probably, again, this is another fade spot for me. A lot of these early games just look like they're going to be sludgy, look like they're going to be pretty low scoring. So I'm probably going to have a lot more exposure to the late games and have my goalies going in these early games because it just doesn't look like all that appealing. From a Philadelphia perspective, their third line, which I can't even keep heads or tails of which line is which for them right now. So that's the Lawton, Farabee, Lindholm line. Just not that great. I just don't like Scott Lawton that much. He's a great two-way player, but I've never played him in DraftKings. I guess Farabee and Lindholm are reasonable options considering they have a really good matchup against New Jersey's third line, which is the Zacha line, which is expected to get Jesper Bratt back tonight. But that's a pretty decent. Like we talked about how I wanted to play Van Riemsdyk the other night. He popped. That was awesome. So I guess you could maybe do like a Farabee, Gostisbehere, Lindblom mini if you wanted to. I think Gostisbehere is another strong play on D again tonight. He went up a couple $100. I think he's around 3,200 tonight. So he's definitely a play. I liked him a lot more at 2,500, but he looks really good in his first game, playing a ton of minutes. So I think if you're going to play it's basically the same as the other night. Like I would definitely still have some interest in Philadelphia just because Scott Wedgwood isn't that good. Like he posted a shutout 2 games ago, and that just seemed like a farce. And they proved that to be correct last game. So this Hayes Van Riemsdyk mini again looks solid, but there's just so many games on this slate that I don't know how much I'm going to go there. Let me see what Van Riemsdyk's price is at. Because, I still like Van Riemsdyk. He's a guy that has a lot of shot volume. Usually, he's a guy that is a key part of that power play. He had 7 shots the other night. He's only 4,000. He's a decent one-off play to round out your lineup. What goalies from the early games would you suggest? So, as I mentioned, definitely Varlamov. I probably am going to, like, if this was Bobrovsky, I'd have a little more interest. I'm not playing Dreger at 8,000. I probably am not playing Merzlikins. Varlamov for sure, 7,500. I like a lot. And I think I like Carter Hart quite a bit at 7,800 as well. And we'll talk about a couple more. But my favorites of these first couple games that we've talked about so far, definitely Varlamov and Carter Hart. The Hurricanes and the Lightning. The Hurricanes are, they look okay still, but they're very shorthanded. No Teuvo Teravainen. So Svechnikov moves up, which is nice. I don't hate a Svechnikov-Aho mini tonight, but I definitely wouldn't be including Brock McGinn in that. He just doesn't do much offensively. Svechnikov and Aho have been terrific together, even without Teravainen in years past. So as you can see here, 34 scoring chances, 4 per 60. So their numbers are outstanding, but they're expected to see the majority of the second and third lines of the Lightning, which are, their best defensive lines. You've got the Cirelli line only surrendering 21 scoring chances against, the Gourde line surrendering only 25 scoring chances against. So not the best spot for the Hurricanes, although I would assume that they'll be relatively low owned, but they might have a little bit of rust to shake off after sitting off for almost a week here, and it's just not the best matchup. Andre Vasilevsky is the best goalie in the world, so there's going to be plenty of nights where Svechnikov is on Aho's line, and I am definitely going to play them. But tonight does not look like they're one of those nights. They're my 20th best line, although this is kind of a situation where you could still play them because I would assume that they'll be relatively low owned, and it's going to be very difficult to ever stack Svechnikov and Aho together when they're both under 6,000. Like, that's probably not going to happen anymore this year. So sometimes you just, even the other night, we completely ignored the matchups and we played Pittsburgh too, even though Malkin's been terrible, but the price was just so cheap that the upside was definitely there. And that's the case with Carolina 1 tonight. I mean, Svechnikov 5,900 and Aho 5,800. That's just way too cheap. So I'll definitely have some of them. If you're doing multiple lineups, I would definitely sprinkle in some Carolina 1. The Svechnikov Aho mini, it looks to be really solid just at that price point. Like, it's just too cheap for the talent level of those two guys. So sometimes you just got to ignore the matchups a little bit. But Tampa Bay 1 appears near the top of my list tonight. Where did they go? Right here. 9th best stack of the night. Stamkos is getting way up there, like 8,300. That's crazy. But this is still a good spot. I mean, don't kid yourself. Like, the Hurricanes are missing some important pieces on their team. Like, this is not Steven Lorenz, Max McCormick, Sheldon Rempal. Like, this is not the Hurricanes team that we're used to seeing. Even the blue line is a little bit thinned out. So Tampa Bay is definitely in play tonight. I was all over their top line early in the season. I will be again tonight. They are expensive. So it's going to be, you're going to have to find some solid values to play with them. But I think that this is a good spot for Tampa Bay 1 because a lot of the ownership is going to flock to the other lines. I mean, Toronto 1 is going to see much higher ownership. Colorado 1 is going to see much higher ownership. Same with Edmonton 1. So you're going to get, you should get theoretically the Lightning at pretty decent ownership tonight, especially given how expensive they are. And I still think that they're in a really good spot. Just to show you guys quickly, expect to see 59% of the Hurricanes' third line, which has been terrific defensively so far this season. That is the Jordan Stahl, the Zingle combination, but I don't even know who Steven Lorenz is. I saw a tweet about him saying that he's worked his tail off to get to the NHL, so kudos to him, but I don't know much about him. And if he's going to be given 60% of his NHL debut minutes against Braden Point and Steven Stamkos, I think he could be in big trouble. So definitely still like Tampa, just at the reduced ownership tonight. A couple questions. What do you think about Ottinger for Dallas going against a bad Detroit team? I don't like it very much. Like, the Red Wings suck. He probably wins, but I don't think he's going to see a ton of volume. Dylan Larkin might not even play. He's a game time decision. But the problem is Ottinger's still 8,000, and they could still lose that game, because they have nobody either. I mean, Rupe Hintz is a game time decision. Jamie Benn's still out. They're super shorthanded. I don't think they're going to lose that game, but they could. And I would rather pay, 7,500 for Varlamov, then 8,000 for Ottinger tonight. I think it's just a little too rich for me. But okay, Buffalo and the Rangers. I'm going to start ripping through these a little bit faster because we are dragging on here. So Buffalo, again, we talk about it every night. Buffalo is in play. The only line you can play from them right now is that top line. The rest of the bottom nine is just a black hole of offense. And the Rangers, they're just searching. They're searching for something still. Buchnevich moving back to the top line definitely helps. Zibanejad, but I'm still going to go back to the well. If I'm playing Rangers, it's going to be Rangers 2. Phil DiGiuseppe has been off to an outstanding start so far this season, so he provides some really big salary relief. I mean, it's not even that big because he's been playing so good that he's up to 4,000 as well. So, but Artemi Panarin still under 7,000. Strome 4,300. Like, you can full stack this line for 15,000, which is ridiculously cheap for how good they could be. DiGiuseppe basically fills that Jesper Fast role for them. So I think they're a line that can definitely have success against the Sabres. Although we talked about it the other day, the Sabres really not giving up a whole lot of offense right now. They've been super, stout defensively thus far. So I'm probably, again, another spot where I'm going to probably fade for the most part and move to the later games because it just does not look like a good matchup. The same cannot be said, however, about the Eichel line. Love them again tonight. They've just been terrific. There's going to be an Eichel line blow up nights in the near future. Like, it has to happen eventually. And tonight could definitely be the night that Rangers have not looked right this season. They're expected to see 41% of the Zibanejad line. And Zibanejad line does give up their fair share of offense. And if they aren't getting it done against the Zibanejad line, the second and third line are definitely exploitable for Jack Eichel. So this is definitely a spot where I'm going to be playing Buffalo 1 again. I'm just going to keep going back to the well because eventually they're going to just go insane for us, and we're going to reap all the benefits. They got about 22 shots last game. He needs a shutout to do anything. Yeah, that's talking about Ottinger, and I completely agree. At 8,000, it's not worth it. Follow you on Twitter and just found out you're on YouTube. Good info and content from Jason. Thank you very much, man. Appreciate it. But yeah, so back to it. Buffalo 1, the only line that I would probably be targeting in this game. And then, obviously, I think you can play New York 1 and 2. They're going to be super low owned, which is great. But Buffalo has been so good defensively this year. People might not know about it. But it's still not a place, like a spot where I'm going to play Linus Ullmark at 7,800 just because the Rangers are still dangerous. So, okay, the Bruins and the Penguins. It's very interesting because, as you see on my list here, bottom one does not pop very high, 19th best stack of the night. But, sorry, I get thirsty talking this much. They're outstanding, I think. I love Craig Smith up to that top line. He's a volume shooter. He's just 4,100. Even though Marchand and Bergeron are crazy expensive, he helps bring that down, that salary back down to earth a little bit. So they don't pop on this chart tonight because they're expected to see 51% of their ice time against the Crosby line. The Crosby line has been and always is pretty solid defensively, but this is just really showing what they've done over a long period of time. If we look at things for the Penguins tonight, I mean, Brian Dumoulin's out now. That they have 4 of their main defensemen not in the lineup tonight. It's crazy how bad this blue line is. So Boston 1 to me, even though they don't pop too high on my sheet, is definitely a line that you have to play tonight. They're crazy expensive, but I love the addition of Craig Smith. He should hit value, no problem. He's a terrific one-off option if you're not playing Boston 1 as a full stack. Craig Smith's probably my favorite one-off because they should really, the Penguins have been giving up goals in bunches all season long, and each game they lose a new defenseman. So with this blue line, they're in big trouble tonight. And I'm probably not going to go back to the well with Malkin tonight. I don't even know what his price. Did his price come up? He's still 5,200. I might still go there again, actually. Again, it wasn't a great matchup the other night, but $5,200 Malkin. Zucker is still just 2,900, and Kapanen's 2,800. So their prices didn't change, even though they scored. That's crazy. So maybe I will go back there. I didn't even know they were the same price. If I'm playing Pittsburgh, it will be them. I don't love the matchup. I think Halak's a pretty solid play tonight as well. But he's 7,900. I still like the other cheaper goalies a little bit more because the Penguins can obviously still get things done. Malkin busted for us so hard the other night. He had 2 breakaways one of which was a 3-on-0 in overtime and couldn't score. It was brutal. Any defense from Boston? Yeah. So it all depends because Matt Grzelcyk is a game time decision. So if Grzelcyk plays, he'll be on the top power play unit, and I definitely want to have him. If he doesn't play, he's only 4,700, so he's still pretty cheap. If he's on the top power play unit, I definitely want him. If he's not, McAvoy's fine because he'll be on the top power play unit if he's out. I also like Zaboral too if you want to get really cheap. He's been, he hasn't been putting up crazy numbers, but he does see a decent amount of ice time, and he's fairly offensive at just 2,800. So if you have to go super cheap, if you're trying to stack Boston one with somebody good, you get Zaboral, Craig Smith, get a little bit of power play correlation there, and he's fine at 2,800. But in addition to Boston 1, if you want to go a little bit cheaper, I like that Coyle's on this moving up to the second line. The way that this third line is built, this line's not going to see any ice time tonight. They might play 5 minutes at 5v5. They're not going to play very much unless it's a blowout, which I imagine it won't be. But that'll just Boston 1 and Boston 2 should see all the ice that they can handle tonight. So I think that the second line's definitely a good option as well tonight. They're much cheaper than the top line, and they don't trail too much behind Boston 1 on the big board tonight. Nick Ritchie has been red hot on that top power play unit, still just 3,900. Coyle just 3,900. Krejci 4,700. They've been. Let me just pull up their numbers here. Their numbers when Coyle and Krejci have been together are really good. They're actually better than Boston 1's numbers without Pastrnak. So if you don't want to play Boston 1, Boston 2 is in just as good of a spot. They are going to see more of the Malkin and the third line of Pittsburgh, which I don't even know who's centering that right now, Teddy Bluger. And those lines are, not quite as, stout defensively as the Crosby line. So Boston 2 is another really good play. They are probably my favorite value stack of the night, although there are some others. Do we get this matchup chart when we subscribe? Because I still see the 2 games from last night. Yes, you do get it. I mentioned at the top of the show, because it's 13-game slate, I was swamped today. Basically, I finished the matchup chart, came on live, and I hadn't had a chance to upload it yet. So it will definitely be up as soon as we get off the air here. Okay. Minnesota, LA. I'm probably not going to play Minnesota tonight. Jonathan Quick. I played Cal Peterson at 6,900 the other night. Jonathan Quick looks fine at 7,200. The Wild really aren't going to score that much, but we talked about it a little bit at the start. LA 1 pops near the top, which might surprise some of you. And here's why. Their offensive numbers are not that outstanding. Only 22 scoring chances for. Somehow they're generating just a massive amount of high danger chances for. I don't really understand how that's possible. But this is why. The Wild decided to move Joel Eriksson Ek up tonight, which offensively is great. He's been red hot, but that third line has, of Greenway, Eriksson Ek, and Foligno has been producing offensively. They've given up nothing defensively, and they've been the shutdown unit for the Wild. Taking Eriksson Ek off that line and replacing him with Nico Sturm really brings down their defensive numbers and boosts the LA Kings offensive numbers up quite a bit. So I still am probably not going to play a ton of LA, even though they pop pretty good, just because it's going to be a low event game. But they're a decent contrarian play. They're fairly cheap. You can play them with some of these really expensive lines, and they have a much better matchup with Eriksson Ek off that top line. The only issue is it could take 5 minutes before Eriksson Ek is back on that line, and then they're in a terrible matchup. So I would tread lightly here, even though they look good. I definitely think that they're an interesting play, but I would still, it just doesn't look like it's going to be, it could be another 2-1 game here. So that's pretty much all I got to say about that game. Dallas and Detroit, pretty much the only thing I would even consider in this game is maybe a Pavelski Radulov mini with Klingberg. Klingberg is off to a red hot start to the season. Pavelski and Radulov look terrific early on. They got a terrific matchup with the Red Wings. So they're expected to see 44 and 39% of the Red Wings middle six, which is just an absolute shit show. They've been actually surprisingly okay defensively, but they're not good. Let's be frank. But problem is, this could be just like the other game. We were 10 minutes in the other night, and the Red Wings finally got their first shot. I think the Stars were only out shooting them 3-0 at that time. So it looks like it's going to be another ugly game. The Stars just aren't they don't have a lot of bodies either. Like they're not really that much better than the Red Wings right now with the players they have in the lineup. So I think that they're still going to see some ownership because, everyone's going to be like, oh man, the Red Wings suck. And that's true. But I just don't think that it's, there's so many better spots on this slate than going with Dallas too. But if we want to look at it, 7,400 and 6,700 for Radulov is just crazy expensive for what you're probably going to get. JT Miller as a one-off. Yep, absolutely. JT Miller is always a solid one-off because he likes to shoot the puck. He's a focal point of that power play. I would always one-off JT Miller over like somebody like Brock Besser just because he is more involved in that power play than Brock Besser is kind of like more of the net front guy. So definitely. The next game is the Coyotes and the Ducks. Again, I mentioned I don't mind John Gibson again tonight at 7,900, although I do have a little bit of interest in Arizona. This Nick Schmaltz-Garland line, they were outstanding last game. I just couldn't get anything by Gibson. I would imagine that they're not going to get shut out again, and if anyone's going to score for Arizona tonight, it's going to be that first line. They grade out really well. 5,300 for Schmaltz, 5,400 for Garland. Very cheap. I probably would leave Kajula off and go elsewhere if possible. He's not a terrible play, but I would probably just go with the mini. If we look at Arizona, they're expected to see about most of their ice time against the second and fourth line of the Ducks. As we mentioned before, the Ducks like to match up their fourth line against the other team's top lines, and I don't know why, because Derek Grant line's numbers are horrendous. But yeah, really all the Ducks, the entire, it doesn't matter who you're matching up with. The Ducks are extremely exploitable. It's just a matter of scoring on John Gibson at that point. So I do have quite a bit of interest in Schmaltz and Garland tonight, and they're going to come at almost no ownership whatsoever. So that's probably, I think the other night we were saying how we like Kemper. He had another solid night. He just didn't have as good of a night as John Gibson. So Kemper back in play again for me tonight at 8,100. I would imagine that the offense should be able to get on the board tonight and win him this game. So I like Schmaltz. I like Garland. I like Kemper. And then from a defensive standpoint, if you want to match up, Jacob Chikrin is the best option. Let me just pull up his price here. 5,000, but he's been really solid. He's tailed off a little bit, but he still plays 22 minutes a night, not afraid to block shots, can easily hit the 3-block bonus. And if they're going to pick up any points, any goals tonight, he usually factors in on those. So he's a good one to add to that little mini stack to make it a little bit, increase the upside a little bit. All right. Colorado won. We were all over them the other night. They absolutely massacred the Sharks, and they should again tonight. There's no reason why they shouldn't. Their Sharks are just a tire fire defensively. McKinnon 8,600, Rantanen 8,200. It's crazy. Like the full stack of these guys is going to be tough. It's 24,000. It's not going to be easy to fit all three of them. Honestly, though, I often leave Landeskog off, and it would have worked. It would have been beneficial the other night. It doesn't mean that he's not good, but I would much rather just be able to fit something else in there with McKinnon and Rantanen than play Gabriel Landeskog at 7,200. The other two are much more involved. So if you're going to play Colorado one, it's probably going to have to be a mini unless you want to stack them with one of these other super cheap lines, which, I mean, there are options, but McKinnon, Rantanen, mini is just outstanding. Their matchups, let's take a look at those again. Basically, the Sharks just gave up the other night. They didn't match up at all. They were just like, whatever, we're going to throw whatever line we can against these guys. Ignore my dog. Apologize if you guys can hear that. But yeah, they just gave up. So they're going to see whatever, and it doesn't matter. Like the Sharks aren't good defensively, and the Avalanche are ridiculous. I don't think I need to talk too much about them. Like you can play other Sharks lines because they might score 7 goals again, but if I'm targeting this game, it's going to be Colorado 1 because they're probably going to be the highest scoring line on the slate. Kadri with those two as a PP stack. I mean, you can. I don't love it just because Kadri's line at 5v5 does absolutely nothing. It's similar to like the Huberdeau situation, but he is cheap, just 4,600 now. So you definitely can. It's a way to diversify a little bit. It's a way to save some value, save some salary. But he's not a guy that's like super involved in that power play either, right? Like, I mean, it's McKinnon, it's McCarr, it's Rantanen. Even when they do score power play goals, more often than not, it's going to be one of those three. They're the guys that touch the puck more than anybody else in that power play. So you can definitely, it's a way to get different, but on a 14-game slate, lineups are going to be all over the map tonight. San Jose, I mean, you can still play San Jose. I always like when like it should be a high-scoring game. It's not like the Avalanche are terrific defensively. I mean, they can be, but this just looks like it can turn into a shootout again. Even if they win 7-3, it's still 3 goals for San Jose. They can still pay off. But they're just too expensive, I think. Like, I really like Kane, Hertl, and Meyer. When they play together, it's always exciting. But I think that they're, I mean, 5,500, 5,100, 4,700. It's actually super cheap tonight. So if you want to get super contrarian, like if you're playing the late slate, I think that they're definitely solid because their price is so cheap. And, Bugner's putting them back together. He put them together. They didn't do anything. Put them back together tonight. And he came out and said, he's like, we need more from them. Like, they're our best players. We need more from them. So hopefully that lights a fire under them. And at that price and in the late slate, I'm definitely going to play San Jose too. You can definitely game stack them with Colorado and just hope that this turns into a shootout. But there is other games in this late slate that are going to be super high scoring as well. So, you're going to play San Jose too in the late at almost no ownership in comparison to some of these other games that are on that slate. Like a Hertl, Meyer as a mini stack. Yeah, I even like them as the full stack. They, but like I said, I think you guys were on here yesterday or 2 days ago. I hate playing Evander King because he's always in the penalty box. So if you're going to leave somebody off that stack, then yeah, go ahead and let it be Kane because you can't score from the sin bin. Byram, he's getting more time. They had a late power play and Colorado won. I mean, like that was just because they were up 7-3 or 7-2 or whatever it was. But Byram is seeing more ice time. I thought for sure I played a ton of Byram that night. And you basically like if you're going to play Colorado 1, you like almost have to play him. But he looks comfortable. He's only 3,000 still. It gets you some correlation with Colorado 1 and allows you to still fit in some other high price pieces because he's only 3,000. His first goal is going to come eventually. So I definitely still like Byram. First time over 20 minutes the other night. I think that was a little bit more of a game script situation, but who's to say that it's not going to be 7-2 again tonight? Like the Sharks really showed they had they couldn't slow them down the other night. Is there a way for premium members to get a Google Sheet version of the 5v5 tables? Yeah, I've looked into it. I'm trying to update it so that eventually the tables are going to be on the actual website where it's not just pictures. It's just taking me some time. I'm hoping to get that done this weekend, and that should help you much more than getting the actual Google Sheets. It'll be not pictures. Okay, 2 more games here. Again, both should be extremely high scoring. This late slate is going to be electric. There's a later slate too, I think, which just includes these 4 games. And these 3 could be the 3 highest scoring games of the night. Should be an electric third or late slate here. So yeah, Toronto 1, my number 1 stack of the night. So if I haven't explained this before, I'm going to do it quickly here. The way that this model works too is it factors in how much ice time, right? And nobody plays more than Toronto 1. Even John Tavares' usage is fairly modest. I think he usually, depending on how many power plays there are, he's usually playing 2 or 3 less minutes a night than the top line. So Toronto 1, they play more than anybody, and they're just outstanding. Mitch Marner has been on an absolute heater for whatever reason. He is only 7,300. I mean, he is the Mikko Rantanen to the Nathan McKinnon, but he's almost $1,000 cheaper than Rantanen tonight. So I definitely like Toronto 1 a little bit more than Colorado 1 tonight, just because you're saving a full $1,000. It allows you to move things around. I'm saying a full 1,000, and that's just if you mini stack the 2 of them. I still like Hyman. He's fine. I leave him off fairly often because they're so expensive, but Hyman can definitely chip in. He plays a ton and has so much exposure to them that he's always a fine play at 4,300. If we want to break down the matchups a little bit here, the Oilers have been going basically strength on strength. Connor McDavid against Austin Matthews is going to be very prominent tonight, and the McDavid line's been fairly good defensively, but it's not like they're good defensively, right? They're basically just you can't generate offense against them because they have the puck the whole time. So it's going to be strength on strength tonight. And when Marner and Matthews have the puck, they're going to be able to generate scoring chances against the McDavid line. Again, the Draisaitl line still not getting anything going, and the Oilers' bottom six has been an absolute tire fire. But the reason John Tavares is in play is because he's going to avoid McDavid for like half the game, which means he's going to be able to feast on this second, third, and fourth line of the Oilers. So similar to the Boston game, like I would like to play Toronto 1 as much as possible. I would like to play Boston 1 as much as possible, but you're gonna have to play some Toronto 2. You're gonna have to play some Boston 2 because they're both in outstanding spots as well, and they come so much cheaper. Who's going to be more owned, Colorado 1 or Toronto 1? I think, I don't know. They might be the same. Like, I really don't know. I want to say Toronto 1 just because they're a little bit cheaper. So I'm going to say Toronto 1, but they're both going to be way up there. Like, people love what they saw at a Colorado 1 the other day. So can I replace Hyman with the cheap D-man, Jake? Yeah, Hall is always in play, man. You can play Justin Hall with like, whenever you're playing Toronto 1, just play Justin Hall automatically. Like, no questions asked, especially tonight. If they're going head-to-head with McDavid, Hall is going to be out there with them every single shift. So 100%. Like, if you're playing Toronto 1, you have to play Hall. He's 2,900. So, I mean, you don't have to play him. You can, if you're playing another cheap line, you can play better defensemen. But if you're trying to fit two high-price stacks in there and you need to go cheap D, like, you have to play Hall. So, yeah, Edmonton obviously still fine. Edmonton 1 pops up at the top here. Jesse Puljujarvi still a great play, only 4,300. Nugent Hopkins getting way up there. So, like I said, they're supposed to see most of the Matthews line. Matthews line does give up their fair share of offense, 28 scoring chances against per 60. The only line I would play from Edmonton is the top line because, again, Leon Draisaitl's line is not getting anything going. But the top two lines for Toronto, definitely really, really good targets tonight. And then the final game of the night, basically broke this game down yesterday. Bo Horvat head-to-head against Josh Norris. The Norris line definitely still in play tonight. They're my fifth best line of the night. They had a terrific night last night. Like, they really did. Like, their underlying numbers were really good. They can definitely generate a lot of chances again tonight. They correlate together all in the same top power play unit. Josh Norris only 4,800. Bathurst only 4,600. Like, there's still a lot to like about them in this game. They're not going to want to lose 3 in a row in Vancouver. Like, they came out, they've had 24 shots in the first period yesterday. So they can do it. They can be, a solid option. So I'm going back to the well with Ottawa 1 100% tonight. I still will probably play some Vancouver 1 because the matchup still remains solid. This Norris line is good offensively, but they're not great defensively. Like, nobody in Ottawa has been able to slow down the opposition at all this season. So that allows Bo Horvat to remain in play even after a quiet night. I think the really interesting thing about going back to Bo Horvat last night is they were higher owned than the Pettersson line last night. And the Pettersson line blew up. Everyone's going to flock back to Pettersson tonight, and it could be Horvat that goes off. And Horvat is terrific on that top power play unit, plays right in the slot. He gets a couple opportunities on the power play every single night. And at 5v5, it's one of the best lines in hockey right now. So I like Vancouver 1 a little bit more than Vancouver 2 tonight, just because the ownership should be almost non-existent, I would imagine. But with that said, I do still like the Pettersson line. I said at the top of the show, they're just so fun to watch on the power play. They're so fun to play. Quinn Hughes has been electric. They're still not very expensive, 58, 59, and 5,600. You can full stack them with another one of these super expensive lines, no problem. So I do still have quite a bit of interest in them again tonight. So that's pretty much all I've got. I'll go through some defense and goalies here really quick. We're coming up at 6:03 here, so we're getting late into it. I showed you guys yesterday, if you were here, the easy way to kind of find which defense to play with the top stacks that you want. So figure out, obviously it's easy for you to pick the expensive D, but the cheap D is a little bit harder to come by. So I'll give you something here. Again, if you're playing Buffalo 1, Rasmus Dahlin still only 4,200. Really like him. He's got back-to-back nights over double-digit DraftKings points. Really like Dahlin at 4,200. If you're playing Edmonton 1, I think that Nurse is a pretty solid play at 4,500. It all depends if he remains on the top power play unit. I would imagine he does. He had 22 points the other night, played over 29 minutes. So he's only 4,500. You can definitely fit him in with Edmonton 1, so long as you're not stacking them with like somebody else crazy expensive. I mentioned Dobson already, 3,800. Mike Riley is an okay play at 3,700. He should see increased usage tonight with Christian Wolanin out, but I think there's a little bit better options underneath him. I said it the other night, if you're playing Buffalo 1, Montour is a solid play. If you can't afford Darlene. Justin Schultz, 3,300 is on my radar tonight. Gostisbehere, 3,200 as well. There's a couple way down here. Okay, so Ferraro, obviously, I'm always going to talk about Ferraro. He's just so steady, plays so many minutes, and he literally never disappoints you. So Mario Ferraro, 3,000 is a great one-off play in a high-paced game. Byram again, 3,000, definitely an option. I've mentioned Ethan Bear before. You know, the numbers haven't been there this year, but he's a guy that plays with Connor McDavid a ton. So if you need to go way deep in the defense, so say like you're stacking 2 really high price and you need to punt both defense, Ethan Bear at 2,900 if you're playing Edmonton 1. Good correlation there. Justin Hull, same thing goes for him. So if you're playing like a game stack, Toronto, Edmonton, Hall, and Bear at 2,900 each, both solid. Mentioned Zaboral at 2,800. He's solid. Jordy Ben had a great night last night. He's blocked 3 shots at least in every single game so far this season, so he's hitting that bonus. Jordy Ben, 2,800. Terrific play. And again tonight if you're playing Vancouver. Jamie Alexiak's another guy that I always go to. He hasn't had the greatest start. I would probably – I'm not even going to play him. I'm not going to mention him because it's like such a low event game. And then my boy Hockenpah. I don't even know how to pronounce his name, but he's only 2,700. I've been punting this guy for like 4 games in a row now. All this man does is block shots. His last 4 games, he has 5-1, 4-4 blocked shots. It's all he does. He's probably going to, get you 8.2 points by blocking 3 shots, and that's all you're really asking for from a guy at 2,700. So get you some Hockenpah in there at 2,700. Is Brady Tkachuk a good one-off tonight? Yeah, absolutely. Should be a high-event game. Brady Tkachuk is one of the best one-offs any single night of the week because he shoots a ton. And it should be a very high-event game. Okay, so goalies. I actually have I'm probably not going to play him a ton, but if you are stacking these crazy good, crazy expensive lines together, you are going to have to dig deep for a goalie tonight. I don't hate Jonathan Bernier or Grice, whoever starts. It should just be kind of, like I said, they can steal that game. Dallas does not have a lot of weapons right now. So if you need to stack those 2 lines together, obviously you're not going to be super comfortable starting a Red Wings goalie right now. I don't blame you, but if you have to go 6,800, I'd much rather play Bernier at 6,800 than Dubnyk at 6,700. I don't have any interest in Matt Murray at 69. Again, so Bernier is probably the best option at the very, bottom of the list. But then moving up, again, Quick 7,200 is a really strong option. Should be a low-scoring game. Sorokin, if he does get the start for the Islanders, he's looked terrible, but I like the Islanders goaltending a lot tonight, regardless. Whichever one gets the start for Varlamov with Sorokin, look like probably 2 of the 2 best cheap options. And then after that, you're gonna climb up the charts to the more expensive guys. Carter Hart looks solid at 7,800. I expect a big bounce back from him tonight. And then Darcy Kemper, 8,100. Really big fan of him tonight. So we're at 53 minutes. This is officially the longest DFO DFS show. I'm going to take a sip of beer here. If you guys have any last-minute questions, we'll get to those. If not, let's get to building lineups. We got about 54 minutes before lock. All right. Looks like we're good here. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed another installment of the DFO DFS show. This will probably be it for me until Monday. The NHL just decided to come out with the dumbest schedule of all time this week. We had 1 game on Monday, closing it out with 1 game on Friday, and then massive slates on Tuesday and Thursday. It was stupid. Hopefully we get back to like the 8, 9, 10 game slates next week and we can actually play. But yeah, with an only 1 game slate tomorrow, I'm not gonna do this on a Friday. I'm gonna enjoy myself. So if you guys want to play Showdown, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me on Twitter. But there will be no show until Monday. I haven't looked ahead at the schedule, but I'm hoping that there's more than 1 game on Monday. Tanner says Byram or Hull. Always depend. It just depends who you're playing. If you're one-offing them, I would probably go Byram just because he actually has power play exposure and he could, match Hull's minutes tonight. But they're both solid, and whoever you're playing, you're going to want to pair them up. Thanks, super cool as always. Yeah, no problem. Thank you very much for coming. And will you update the website over the weekend? Oh, yeah. All that stuff will still be up there. Like, I just don't do the 5v5 thing on Sundays, but it'll be up Saturday. All that stuff will still be up. It's just no video on Friday or the weekend. So all the premium stuff will still be up on the weekend. But enjoy your guys' evening. Enjoy your guys' weekend. We'll see you guys back here on Monday. And most importantly, let's win some money tonight. So I'm Brock Seguin. We'll see you guys back here Monday.